I'm gonna make a bold statement right here. Nothing good since Jimi Hendrix has come out of Seattle. I'd like to hear arguments to that. Grunge sucks a dick. The Mariners have never been great. They had the most winningest season of all time, and then they still fucked out in the division series. The Seahawks are like my fourth favorite team in the NFC West. And the Supersonics even seen the writing on the wall that this place was a shithole, and they've had more success in Oklahoma City in the time since they've left Seattle than in the prior amount of time that they were playing in the Kingdome, or the Key Arena, sorry. Kingdome was the old Mariners spot. No, probably, I'd say, yeah, maybe Hendrix, maybe, and he's like might make the top 10 best guitar list, in my opinion, but the only thing that they've been exporting is overpriced flannel and shitty ideas, and as we can see here, we have a brand new CHAZ, because the Cal Anderson Park, what the original autonomous zone was named after, is once again filled with waste and dumpsters and signs, as you can see. Antifa's back, it's in full force, and nobody's there to stop it. We'll get to it, but first we're gonna set this up as to why the fuck they're there. Like, I seen this yesterday and it was like, oh, okay, why? In comparison, God, it's nice to see grass, because we got a shit ton of snow up here last night and it sucks, but that's the only thing good that's going to come out of this. As protesters moved to occupy a vacant house near Cal Anderson Park late Wednesday afternoon, a federal judge heard a case of a homeless woman who lives in a park claiming that the city of Seattle planned to remove her encampment is unconstitutional. Why is that? Is this another one of those instances like down there in Portland where they occupied the home of somebody who had another place to go and had $300,000 and had to remortgage their house because their son was a fucking murderer? Could be something like that. These are horrible circumstances. This is a horrible time to have to make this kind of decision, said U.S. District Judge Richard Jones during the hearing. As protesters and homeless campers argue the park's occupants should be left alone to hunker down against a pandemic and wet and cold winter. No, why don't you just move down to San Francisco like every other fucking homeless piece of shit? Just days before Christmas. Well, 8 days. Come on now, let's fucking be accurate here. The city claims that health and safety hazards have grown too significant to ignore at Cal Anderson Park neighborhoods, and nearby businesses owners have complained about the park for months. Yes, because the Seattle Police Department have been totally kneecapped by fucking Mayor Karen Jenny Durkan, who was one of the first mayors to defund her police, but then realized, holy fuck, this is a terrible idea, tried to walk it back to her city council, but they were like, no, we already committed to it and there's nothing we can do. And then she's like, oh, for fuck's sakes. Hilarious turn of events. Seattle Parks Department employees posted notices Monday ordering people in the Capitol Hill Park to remove their property, or their personal property, as of 7:30 a.m. Wednesday. I'm sure they followed that, but by 7:15 that day, more than 100 black-clad protesters had shown up and were patrolling the perimeter around the cluster of tents. I think you could probably push back those soy-fueled heroin addicts. I'm just saying that Antifa never quite bring their best. And to call them protesters, really, at this point, ask the people who are directly affected, the small businesses that are actually still maybe potentially open, even though Jay Inslee has shut down the entire state, except for Mossy Rock, the little city that we covered the other day. Yeah, ask them what their opinions are. They stood in front of a barricade made of dumpsters, plywood, barbed wire, and other trash, honestly. Like, what the fuck? Your little communist utopia is just a pile of dirt? Just a pile of trash? Like, what the Honestly, that's definitely a great way to bring people onto your cause. Inside the park, more than 20 tents remained, though most campers had left as recently as Tuesday. About double that number were in the park. Oh no, and people living there took up most of the green space and sidewalk. Police briefly showed up on the north and south sides of the park, but stayed in their cars and left quickly. You guys are the ones with authority. Why the fuck would you let this stand? Now let's get to the heart of this. Ada Yeager asked the court for an emergency temporary restraining order against the city's planned action of getting rid of her from the park, calling the removal a coordinated destruction and taking of personal property of unhoused citizens. Fucking bums. Without due process or consideration of civil rights. Yes, it's my civil right to set up a fucking encampment in a public park. It's not, just in case you were wondering, it's really not. Yeager says she has been living at the protest encampment, which makes it more legal, I guess? Yeah. At Cal Anderson Park since early June. Oh, during the Summer of Love, when the park became a focal point for the Black Lives Matter riots, who had targeted the Seattle Police Department's nearby East Precinct. Targeted or took over because they were ordered to stand down. The police department actually was, and they were ordered to move out. While the week of the shootings and rapes and assaults took place. As the COVID-19 pandemic reaches a new crisis point in Seattle, it's always a new crisis point whenever you need to bitch and complain, I understand. Shelters and transitional housing are full or nearly full. Well, if they're nearly full, I think Ada could probably, spool her shit and fucking sleep in a cot for a night. Established tent encampments are the only safe option. Safe? Safe. You think that fucking place is safe? Boy. We have very, very different definitions of what constitutes safe. The lawsuit alleges the city is causing the homeless residents of the park irreparable harm by sending police to arrest and brutalize already traumatized individuals, cleaning up the filth, and chilling constitutionally protected expressions and assembly. Okay, just because you claim you're protesting things, but you are just living fucking free in a park, doesn't mean it's a protest, okay? Okay, we know your tactics. We see you using them right in front of our face. And the cops have every single right and every single opportunity required to clean that out. I don't get it. I don't get it. Hear what a city attorney had to say about this. Maybe he'll talk some sense. Oh, some items have already been thrown away if they have been pissed on or contaminated. So literally everything down there. A statement that promoted the judge to point out that it is Seattle in December and it was cold, getting dark, and raining hard, and as the hearing progressed. Yeah, so why would you let molded and rotted shit hang out in your public park? Fucking Christ. Other people would like to go there because I've seen pictures of Cal Anderson Park when it's not being occupied by these fucking miscreants. It looks like a really nice place, okay? A place that puts our local park to shame because, well, funny story, it's actually quite a lot like Cal Anderson Park where you have to watch where you're stepping, otherwise you might hit a crack pipe or a fucking used heroin needle because decriminalizing pot was such a great idea. Oh my god. This fucking Muskogee Park, if you guys ever want to research what a local city park looks like when it's completely overrun by bums, yeah. Literally at any point during the day, any time of the year on the calendar, you will see people rustling about in the bushes there, and it's only getting wider now that everything's being shut down, and little tent encampments like I showed in my Grand Prairie homeless video. Yeah, they're just allowed to exist because the local bylaw or the peace officers are a lot more concerned about enforcing their fucking stupid COVID restrictions. So this new CHAZ, or whatever the fuck they're going to call it, was supposed to be cleared out today, okay? As you've seen there, and it looks like the fucking city prosecutor's making a great fucking defense case. But to be fair, that's also just what this outlet's reporting. So we got perhaps a little bit more of an in-depth, and doesn't that look like just the most sophisticated fence that really makes Trump's wall jealous. City of Seattle planned to sweep homeless encampments and protesters at Cal Anderson. Wait on said judge's decision, and this is accurate as of this morning, and we still haven't had any sort of ruling by the judge, so anticipate this fucking disheveled mess to be hanging out through the end of the week. Normally these things don't last longer than a week, so probably it'll get knocked down by the 23rd or maybe Christmas Eve. Everybody needs to get home because it's a brand new federal holiday in the States, Christmas Eve now, which is kind of cool. It's always been just like a half day for anybody who's ever worked it. So anyways, a Washington District Federal Court judge will decide the immediate future of Cal Anderson Park Thursday morning. It is soon to be cleared and swept of campers, or will community defense volunteers mark a victory, however brief, in holding back City Hall. The decision from Judge Richard Jones, expected Thursday morning, it didn't happen, could open the way for Seattle Parks to move forward with its announced plan to clear Cal Anderson Park with bulldozers, hopefully. With flamethrowers. Oh no, I'm sorry. They're only just cleaning out the tents and belongings with fire hoses, I hope. Activists and Black Bloc protesters, Antifa rioters, come on now, Seattle, or Capitol Hill, Seattle, whatever, did their best to fill the park Wednesday with trash, and they just did that by showing up. The city's deadline for clearing the area after what it has been an intensive outreach effort to offer homeless camper shelters across the city. Unbelievable. They will take up any cause in order to just fucking disturb the normal flow of life. But you notice how the Antifa violence really is slowing down post-election? Like, they had their little week there where they just went fucking bonkers, and then they started to put up, oh, it doesn't matter who's the president because we're just going to riot regardless. And then all of the big riots, all of the large gatherings started to stop. They started to slow down. They only started coming out after, say, the Million MAGA March in Washington, D.C. Okay, they set up another encampment in Portland. They've been doing whatever this is in Seattle. But they really got quiet in a bunch of other cities. Like, maybe there's just nobody left in New York City. I don't know. Probably because it's cold. That's kind of what everybody prognosticated at the time. Is right around Thanksgiving, everything would start to slow down. And that's kind of what happened because, as you can see, Antifa are really dedicated to the cause. You know, just sticking to the fucking Pacific Northwest and not fighting for their rights for the entire year because, darn, it's getting cold and wet out. The Seattle Police Department circled and patrolled the area of the occupied protests, but did not enter the park to engage the protesters. Why? They're there illegally. Wednesday and overnight into Thursday, when Judge Jones was expected to announce his decision on the requested temporary restraining order to halt any sweep. This should be the easiest thing. You know what? If they're going to toss out Trump lawsuits left, right, and center, even when they have legitimate standing, instead of just saying, oh, you're being a big meanie and we want to set up our park, we want to set up our tents in this park, you can't tell us to leave. Yeah, you should be able to just go, yeah, no, fuck you with your temporary injunction. But that's what happens when you have sympathetic people on the bench to your leftist causes, I suppose. The federal civil rights lawsuit brought on behalf of the unhoused bums of Seattle put a day-long pause on any clearance plans Wednesday, but lawyers from the the Seattle city attorney said further action to clear the park would be imminent if requests for a restraining order were denied. And because the judge is dragging his feet, that doesn't mean Antifa can't go ahead and set up anything else, because we got this straight from Andy No. Antifa in Seattle are now beginning to barricade a yellow house on E. Denny Way. The city still has not broken up the growing autonomous zone in Cal Anderson Park. And as we can see here, I'll just scroll through it a little bit. They got such fun things on this yellow house, and now they're going to have a YHAZ in Seattle. Probably the funnest one to say so far, because CHOP was retarded. CHAZ was, it just sounded like that fucking second string outside linebacker who used to hang out with all the jocks in high school who thought that he was tough until he kind of stepped up to him. And YHAZ was just several shades of a failed rapper, but YHAZ, like, come on now. I think even they like saying this one the best. Invest in community, defund Seattle Police Department. Well, they're already doing that, but I guess they don't keep up on the news. That's fine. So yeah, there you can see a couple of the, To be fair, I wouldn't want to take a, 3-point tackle from the one on the left, but the bright pink shoes for the one on the right there really screams intimidation. But then I will leave you guys with that. Housing is a human right. See, it's never enough. Okay, you have calls that, no, healthcare is a human right. It's not a human right if you have to force somebody else to do something for you, okay? In my opinion, human rights are things that are negatives. Well, let me explain this. Don't tell me to do anything, okay? You have the right to free speech, meaning nobody can tell you what to say. You have the right to assemble. Nobody can tell you who to hang out with. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. See, all of that stuff is there. All of that stuff is great. It is the bedrock for Western society and the foundation for which every society should strive to achieve, to be completely honest. The moment you start telling people what they can and cannot do, or rather what they have to do, is the moment where you start lurching towards socialism, which ultimately ends in communism and a lot of death. But yeah, that's the latest out of Seattle. Fucking Christ, dude. This is what happens when you let a one-party rule an entire place. Well, this is what happens when you let Democrats run one city and one place for a long enough amount of time. It happens on the right as well. Like, you take a look at Oklahoma, it's been run by Republicans for a very long time, and they just have an overwhelming meth epidemic. So, I don't know, you can take heroin or meth. I don't know. I think the meth heads are a little bit more productive, though. Anyways, guys, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.